So good afternoon, everyone, and I thank you for attending our post-Juneteenth meeting. We are just excited to have had our first annual Juneteenth, and we anticipate it will be an annual Juneteenth celebration. And we wanted to follow up with you to make sure that we improve in our next year event, but we also want to know, what we did well, and again, opportunities to make improvements. So at this point, we're going to pretty much go around the everyone if what you liked about Juneteenth and what areas of improvement, from parking to setup to our volunteers, what we did well. So if you're all right with that, we can begin. How about I begin?
I was just going to say, I just would like to start off by thanking you for your undying energy and incredible coordination, because I think that really we all were a team, but the success behind that team was your leadership and vision and coordination. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm humbled for that, but I never like to take thanks, because especially when it's a team effort, and I appreciate that. But this is something that I do and I enjoy doing, and everyone had a massive contribution from the weekly meetings to from beginning to end, from setup to breakdown. So I appreciate that, Miss Janet, and I'm sure everyone on the call and on the team also appreciates that. Thank you.
I'll just echo that, because I did send you, Trina, a note afterwards, and you said exactly the same thing, that it is a team effort, but teams don't win unless you have leaders. And so I know none of this would have happened but for your passion, time, and energy. And so thank you as well.
So I just wanted to say that it was a great day from the weather for the weekend, because it started off that we were a little, thinking about, oh my, it may rain and what are we going to do? We had a plan for rain, but we are just so thankful that the weather was a beautiful day, and it wasn't too hot and humid. It was warm, but it wasn't overbearing.
Right.
So that was a good thing. And I really think the date that we had it, that didn't conflict with other events with the city. And also it allowed us to be able to participate with the Juneteenth event, because we know Juneteenth is usually June 19th. This year, the weekend fell on the 18th, and we wanted to participate with the Georgetown Juneteenth celebration with Miss Jane Hovington, who has been doing this for many, many years, and we were able to get her input on how she did it, and we wanted to mimic what Miss Hovington did as well. So I think that was having it on the last Saturday in June was a good date to pick, and it was right before the 4th of July weekend. We didn't interfere with that. So one of the things that I propose is we continue to have it on that same date in June. The planning, I know that some recommendations have been made, but I wanted to say that to the tent setup team, the temptations. I mean, that really went well. We got plenty of compliments about how people were assisting with the taking of the tents off of the vehicles and setting them up in their spots. So they really thought that was well done and well organized. And I have to thank the farmers market for all of their hard work and everything that they did. I mean, from the tents to the tables to help setting up, help breaking down, allowing us to use a lot of their equipment. And it was just kind of, I mean, no one saw the back end of it, but when it came together well. I think the parking, the plan, I thought that was pretty good. I think there's room for improvement there, but having the school availability, the lot in the back helped with a lot of the would be or could be congestion that was anticipated. But we do have some improvements there. I'm going to let Ed talk about where we can improve there as well. But the music, everyone loved the music, the stage setup. We can make some improvements in that area. And Mike Hines had told us he would be willing to offer some recommendations as far as that is concerned. Having the music the sound come early as it did was wonderful, because it also allowed music to be playing during setup. So that kind of created the atmosphere. And having, I think the way that people were shuffled in, the food trucks, maybe we could do a little better on getting them in. But one food truck we knew was a little bit bigger than we thought it was going to be, or what they sent us. So that kind of, but then we did have, we were anticipating almost 10 food trucks, but I think 5 arrived, and that was great. I mean, that was pretty much enough. So, but all of them pretty much sold out. So for the crowd that we had, I think the crowd was pleased with the food selection. And I think the giveaways were great. I think the history tables and the vendors were well satisfied. And I'm going to stop there and just let someone else take the floor.
I just had 2 comments. One you referenced about parking, and I think Ed maybe talking about that shortly. But this was I'm hoping next year we could maybe figure out a way to incorporate the Lewis line into Juneteenth as a much more organized. Obviously, this is a pilot program going on this summer, but that may be an opportunity to alleviate a lot of the traffic and parking problems in that area. The second thing I wanted to mention, I mean, we could go on and on about all the things that went well. I mean, just the sustained crowds validate that. I may have missed this because I left about 3 o'clock or so, 3:30. Was there any, along with all the musical acts, I was thinking a really neat addition would be an essay contest throughout the Cape Henlopen district that students could participate in about the meaning of Juneteenth. I mean, they people do this a lot for July 4th and Memorial Day, and what does that mean to you? And that might be a way to kind of incorporate younger students into the celebration.
We did have Miss Juneteenth who talked about what Juneteenth meant to her.
Okay.
She was a college student who won the national title of Miss Juneteenth. So she did talk about that a little bit. So, but that's an idea that we will definitely write down for.
I mean, I think
consideration
Bill
for
could be
next year.
helpful with that, with
Mhm.
his role in the school board and just seeing if there's interest in having an essay contest.
One,
Ed, go right
okay,
ahead.
I'll, I don't know.
It's on. You're
It
good.
is on?
Yeah.
All right, Ed to scene. I'll just talk about parking. The first thing I want to do is thank everybody who worked out in the hot field with me that day, because we couldn't have done it without the volunteers. On the good side, I think it was very thankful that we had that parking lot, which we probably will not have in the future. So the exercise of, working in that field is probably moved for us moving forward. However, it saved us this year. Everybody was very cooperative, and we had the issue with the farmer's market, the in and out, which we didn't anticipate, but we overcame that obstacle, and it worked out. Once everybody got parked, at 4 o'clock, I finally gave it up, and I started to enjoy the festival for myself, and it went well. The initial plan, on the negative side, the initial plan was to have the parking lot closed to parking, and by the time I found out about it, that was lost. So just as on the first or open, night out, that lot needs to be completely closed off. And probably from the very beginning, I think the problem was the overlap with the farmer's market allowed for people to park there and then stay there all day. So moving forward, we're going to look at not having the field. We're going to incorporate the Lewis line. I think we can probably get them dedicated for the event. We're going to have to use remote parking and try to, quell the street parking as much as we can, but we're going to have to be very strict about that parking lot next year. And if I have to be the enforcer, I certainly don't have a problem doing that. So signage, we didn't realize, I never really gave it a thought until the night before, that we didn't really have directional signing. So I whipped up some childlike signs, and so next year moving forward, I think we can actually have signage that we can use every year. It doesn't have to have the date, just directional signage. That was good. And those were really my responsibilities. So just parking and the overall safety of the park. And I think that went well. We got not let people park in the park next year. We had a lot of that. So that can't happen next year. But excuse me, overall, I think the use of the park was fantastic. I think the layout was fantastic. The VIP tent was a great idea. And we may look at more shade next year. Maybe once everybody gets established in the park and all the vehicle traffic is all settled in, maybe we can put up more pop-ups to allow much needed shade. It was a priority. Even the little saplings we had there were people huddling under, as Marty pointed out, they were using every little patch of shade. That's pretty much it. I just felt it was just a wonderful event, and I was really proud to have been a participant. And it was a wonderful collaborative effort across our whole city, and I think we need that. So, and we didn't have any heat stroke injuries or anything, so that was a good thing. So.
And I think it was great to have the junior ROTC to assist as well, and to have, medical, the nurses and all there, just in case, because you just never know how things would, turn out with heat and seniors and what have you. And I mean, you don't have to be a senior to have a heat stroke, but I think that was a great addition.
Is it a possibility for next year, if we did the food trucks again, because this year 10 said they would come, but only 5 showed up. And then maybe limit to maybe put 1 or 2 in the parking lot, the little parking lot that we have closed off. And then like the other 2 on the street, like unfortunately I couldn't attend due to health issues, but from the plan, there's supposed to be 2 on the street and then some in the park. So I don't know if it's a possibility to, maybe put 1 in the parking lot or something.
We definitely have to look at it in a different way. But I think having the big giant trucks where they were was great. And I don't have a problem doing that next year. Didn't damage the park.
Right.
And
And we just don't want to, even in the parking lot, don't want to block people from unloading.
Yeah.
So to have
Right.
food trucks in that area may be a little
Right.
issue, and especially if people are walking and can't see,
Gotcha.
so that might be a little safety concern.
right, and closing the streets was perfect.
It was good. Okay.
That was a good idea. Closing.
I have a
Actually,
question.
yes.
It's Helene.
Hello, Helene.
I can't see you, Ed. Ed, can we go back to the parking for just a minute? Because I think I heard something that was concerning. Are you saying that the market will not be able to park in that parking lot until 10:30? Next year, that's your
Next
suggestion?
year, I just don't see any way around it unless we have police officers. How we're gonna enforce the use or not use of that parking lot. Once we open it up, people never left.
Right,
So
but
we
part
gotta
of the
look at that. We can look at that next
Well,
year.
look, part of my comment was, I think that we had cleared all the customers out of there by 10:30 because we started at a little bit after 10. I think that one of the issues was vendors who didn't leave.
That's
And-
it.
And what we felt was, after we did our part and closed off that parking lot, we thought that was, the end of what we were supposed, and I do believe it's kind of the end of what our responsibility was there. But if you're saying also the field is not going to be open to parking, or is it next year?
We really don't know. We don't know the construction schedule yet.
Right. Because I have to tell you, that's going to kill the market for parking. If we can't park in that lot till 10:30 and there's no parking on that field, it's going to be a real challenge for the market. Just putting that out there.
Sure.
But even if we can't control the construction on that empty lot, but like Khalil said, hopefully with the Lewis line next year, due to it being pilot this year, that possibly next year we can advertise a little bit more and get people to use the Lewis line to not only go to the market, but as well as
Celebration.
does that make sense?
I hear you. I think that people just get in their cars. We are real supporters of the Lewis line, as you know, and I think it's going to grow. But I think it's going to not be able to have access to that parking lot is going to put a lot of pressure on the surrounding neighborhood and streets. I think we should maybe think about it more and think about if there's a way to better control getting people out of that parking lot. And maybe that would mean that we would have an officer in there saying, you got to leave now. I don't think there were customers in that lot from the market. I think it was mostly vendors that, even though people I've heard suggested they leave, they didn't.
Right,
So-
I
so
agree.
one of the suggestions I made or was thinking about is that having a cone in the parking space so that the vendors could not even pull in to that particular space to park, and they would just have to unload and move on to wherever they need to park. Because that was I agree with Miss Helene. We did have mostly vendors who parked and never left. I had someone go around to ask the vendors, if you're parked in this space, could you please move your vehicle? So I couldn't monitor that to the utmost, but and I think the other thing is that for me, if there is disabled who need to park, they should be able to park there, but the vendors cannot park there.
Harry, you had something?
Well, yeah, I was the one that was there. I was on that spot. I was in that parking lot. So I probably was the best point of view. I agree with Helene. There were no farmers market park after 10 o'clock, 10:30. They were gone. That lot was completely empty. Our mistake was allowing the vendors to come into those spots under the pretense they were going to unload. And the only one, we only gave permission to 2 of those vendors to stay in that lot. One who had a handicapped, blind daughter who needed the shade and needed a seat, and the other who had the same thing. They were handicapped. So they were the only 2 that we allowed to stay. But a lot of people were coming up and saying, we're just unloading. And they were using those spots. And then when I looked every one of them in the eye, because I walked around to every one of those vendors. They like ignored me. And then when it was time to leave, it was obvious that they had just taken those parking spaces. I agree with Helene. Cones should be in every one of those spots. And we should be the ones after 10:30, we should be the ones to give those spots up, not allow somebody to come in. And I agree with Helene that the farmer's market does need that parking lot, but they were not in any way a problem, because Elaine's people were telling people as they came in after 10 o'clock that they need to be gone by 10:30, and every one of them followed that rule. So I think we need to look at the parking lot. I love Trina's idea of putting cones down or some barriers down. We need more control with people coming in and unpacking. And I'll bring that up when the time comes, but that's my 2 cents about that parking lot. I was on the ground there. I was in the park from 9 o'clock to 6:30.
It might be helpful to have signs, if you're talking about using cones, and putting signs that just say vendor unloading only. And I think that can be done relatively inexpensively. But that gives them a very clear message that it's just unloading and not parking.
And the cones.
And
Yeah, and the cones, yeah.
So like when the police have a no parking because of something or maintenance does, they put the cones out and then they have the stick with the sign that says whatever, no parking.
And
So you could do that.
If
What?
Harry went around and
Yeah.
told them.
Yeah.
It did-
They
They're-
knew.
They knew.
Well,
Yeah.
I
It was, it
know,
wasn't,
but-
it wasn't, the message didn't get out. And I just want to clarify that I meant no disrespect to the farmer's market. It was the fact that we had that overlap. I didn't mean it to, that it was farmer's market people. It was the timing of it and the fact that I couldn't be there or we didn't have enough enforcement. But the word was out. Everybody, they knew they were not supposed to park there, so we just need more enforcement with that. And I agree, the farmer's market needs the parking lot, and that's not what I meant. I apologize if that's the way I came across. But it was the timing issue. We're going to have the same timing issue next year, and we're going to have more of a premium on parking. So we have to look at it in an entirely different way. That was my point. Not to disparage the historic Lewis Farmers Market. So
Yeah,
I
Harry.
apologize for that.
Well, I think we're moving into a solution here that we can really hammer out later. But
Yes.
I don't think that the farmer's market, we don't need to close it off from the farmer's market. I think our biggest problem was vendors and control there. I was there on site. My wife and her team of 3 other women that set up the farmer's market every Saturday morning, starting at 6 a.m. They worked very, very hard to unload all those vendors, to set up all those vendors, and then take them down at the end. And we had Temptations helping in both directions, and we also had the ROTC. We had plenty of help, but we didn't have any directors. We didn't have a top echelon. We had lots of helpers, but we need more people at the top. And that would have been one of my suggestions that I was going to bring up later. We need Trina. If we look at it in a military fashion, Trina's our general. And honestly, Trina needs an assistant. She had her daughter there, which was a wonderful thing, but Trina needs to have an assistant. But we need to have other people in that hierarchy. We need to have a general in charge of parking, a general in charge of food trucks, a general in charge of vendors. And then they should have people below them, and they should have the prime authority. They should know what the rules are. They should know how this is going to work. And now that we've done it once, we have no excuse not to make it work better, not to have these problems. But, I mean, honestly, you can't give those vendors an inch. You have to tell them as firmly as you tell anybody, this is unloading. There's no place for you to park. You can leave your car right out here outside the cones, but it needs to be moved when you're done. And we're not going to give them any choices. And I think,
let me ask a question. I know we had the food trucks. I'm trying to avoid them from even coming into the parking lot. So the side where we had the food trucks. What if they maybe we can consider? Well, that might not work because people would have to cross across food
Right.
trucks on the other side to cross the road, and we don't want to do that. I was thinking maybe we could have the vendors unload on that side as well, but not on the side where the parking is closest to the grass. As you come into the parking lot, here's the park, and here's the. But on this side, because we're blocking the parking spaces, then they can come into pretty much what we said.
The vendors dribbled in. The vendors didn't come in a herd. They dribbled in. They started coming early, but they slowly dribbled in, and then it got very intense at the end because. But we could control our vendor unloading very easily if we had enough manpower and we knew what to look for.
We need more structure.
And as far as the food trucks, that was an ideal place for food trucks. We could have had 2 more food trucks there, and it would have been just as easy because by putting the food trucks there, that gave us an end point for our park. That people could walk through the parking lot, people could walk to the food trucks, there was a nice big sidewalk there, and then they could walk back into the grass and the tent.
Right. Right.
We easily could have had a couple more food trucks, just as I learned when I started parking a truck that had a 53-foot trailer who was pulling it with a 22-foot dually, followed by his son with another dually pulling a complete smoker rig. It wasn't a 53-foot allowance that we had for this guy. So we had to be very flexible. And honestly, like I said, I was the one in the park. So I was like kind of by the seat of my pants, kind of changing the rules to make everything fit. And honestly, I thought it worked out beautifully. But like I said, if there was someone in charge of vendors, someone in charge of parking, someone in charge of food trucks, it would have been smoother. And I think that's really our goal. I think we really had I don't know who was talking to begin with because no one said their name first, but Trina did absolutely a stellar job she's irreplaceable. Just like Helene has 17 years of farmer's market experience that you don't dare question because she's got a background. Trina's going to be our queen for the next 17 years.
She got
You better
promoted.
Wow, Harry.
You got promoted.
I think she might be the empress. I don't know.
One thing I wanted to bring up, because like you said, with construction, parking could be more of a crunch next year. One of the Lewis Line challenges that we have is that particular weekend, we do not have the high school, because that's when that big lacrosse tournament is.
Yeah.
So, and I'm pretty sure that is always the last weekend in June. So I think it's fair to expect that we will not have it next year either. So one of the things we might want to do is start to think about where we might be able to have satellite parking
Yes.
to more effectively utilize.
There's Bill. Whole committee on parking. And I
Right.
think it's not too soon to start thinking about it.
Right, but I think if we could come up with, knowing that we will, in all likelihood, not have the high school. If we can start thinking about what locations we might be able to utilize and begin the outreach to whatever property owner that would.
Is the chat disabled?
So,
However, I'm so sorry. Can you say you're so sorry?
I'm sorry, I did that. I accidentally ended the webinar for all when I was trying to just take her off. So sorry about that. I apologize. It's all good.
Deborah, you're able to talk. You just have to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, thanks for having this meeting. I just wanted to let you know, A, the chat is disabled. I guess for anyone who is just an attendee rather than a participant. The only, and we did drop out. I just logged right back in through the original link. As you can see, at least one other person did. I have just one very small suggestion. I thought the event was really fabulous. And what amazed me the most as someone who's organized a good amount of things in Lewis is you didn't do a whole lot through traditional avenues, and nonetheless, the word was out and that event was just hopping. It was just great, Trina, and to everyone who was really on the core group. My only suggestion, having worked the registration table, would be that a lot of people came in through different entrances, and that it might be helpful next year to have fewer people at one registration table and just have two registration areas, one closer down to the stage and then one where it was this year. You know, I just think that if the goal is to get people to sign up and count attendance, that would be really helpful, or have people set up with counters.
Thank you. We'll definitely work on that. One of the original plans was to have two sign-in areas, one over kind of closer to the stage and one where we were, but with the traffic coming in for the food trucks, we thought maybe that not to put a sign-in area over there at that side, but maybe we can consider somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it would be ideal there, but I have no complaints because I spent the day in the shade at the other registration table and it was beautiful. It was just hard to hear the speakers from back there, and I just know that's a question of distance, so I don't really have any input. It was a great day, really nothing to say but that.
The way we positioned the sound for the speakers, we wanted to make sure that it went kind of straight back instead of blaring out all over to the neighborhood. So that's probably why you know, you couldn't hear, but in reality, most of it was, you know, for the people who were sitting around the food area and for the VIPs to hear. Not necessarily is a vendor that far back going to hear, but we hope to work with the sound folks to see if it could, because when I went across to my house, which is across the street from the park, I could not hear anything. I couldn't hear the music. I couldn't hear. So because it was so focused to go straight back instead of straight back and out. So that's something we could see if the sound setup can be a little different. But we also have to remember that there's only one electrical outlet at the park. So how we do that may be something that may or may not happen.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I know I've organized outdoor events with music, and it is a challenge, period. Because you're right, like some people are not going to want to listen, but the music was so great. It was a treat for anybody who could hear it.
I think I really enjoyed having the, you know, because we knew the level of things that were happening the weeks prior. I appreciate the Lois Police Department being there and having a presence. So I'd like to thank Chief Spell for making that happen because it was a busy weekend and the area was busy, having the cars and motorcycles escorted in. That was wonderful. I happened to be able to see that when they came in. So that was a great opportunity and almost like a parade. So that was great. And the cleanup, oh my gosh, there was really no cleanup. The participants in the community, they really, it was just very respectful of the park. And I'm sure Harry and Ed could attest to that.
On that note, Trina, I'd like to just on behalf of the maintenance department,
Oh, yes.
the volunteers and the cleanup, for those of you who may not know, we only have I believe two maintenance on staff on the weekends, and they're limited hours. And the cleanup of the park and moving all of the barrels and the cones and the trash cans to one location really helped the maintenance department out. So thank you for that, because it was a long day for everybody. And to have to do that level of detail to get it all in one location so they could just, and I went by the next morning at about 8:30 and they were putting the last load in the truck. So thank you on behalf of the maintenance department, because it really did make their day a lot less complicated.
I mean, they were fantastic getting everything that was needed the night before and that day that, you know, and then having you coordinate with the porta potties and all of that.
So,
that was wonderful.
Two questions that I have. We ordered, I think, 3 standard porta potties, and we have a standard and
ADA porta potty already on site at the park. So because I had left, I think around 3 o'clock, did that seem to be enough, or do we think that we need more? Were there people questioning, other than that they were locked in the morning? I beat you to it. Okay,
I think we probably want hand washing station.
okay.
here.
Yeah, that's, okay, great.
And we also probably should look at the distribution of the water. I think it went okay, but
That was
if
my
we can get
second
away from, if
question.
we can get away from bottled water, I think it would be helpful. And maybe we should look at giveaway refillable containers, Juneteenth, refillable containers, and possible dispenser for potable water for people.
I like the bottled water concept. I just couldn't find it at first because it wasn't under where we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So we might want to, I liked where it ended up, where we moved it. So
Was there
mhm.
for the day, was that enough water?
Water, I
It
think we had
was.
like 8 cases.
I think I ended up taking maybe 20 bottles
Okay,
left over. But we have to consider that next year, folks are really, they're already asking, oh, we're
Yeah.
excited about the next year event.
So- so probably increase the number.
Mhm.
Okay. I think that's all I have.
And trash and recycle, we have plenty.
Okay,
That went well. We just got to look at some alternatives for shade, possibly, if that's at all possible.
I think for programming, Mr. Diaz and the entertainers and the speakers that we had, I think that I think that was wonderful. I think the 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours that we had on deck was enough. I'm personally, I'm not ready to go through to a whole day of programming. We did not build in a lot of time for in between
right.
setup or events. So that's something we need to consider for next year. And but everyone who came, everyone who performed, everyone who spoke, I think it was just, and the bands and the dancers, that was just fantastic. And I know everyone enjoyed it. So, and I think Mr. Bonville is on the line right now. Would you like to say anything about that?
Yeah, I'm listening to everybody's comments, and I agree. I still have people coming up to me and say, wow, what a great event. And you never know how things are going to go when it's the first time. So for something of this magnitude and everybody working together, I think it helps. And you all have echoed those sentiments in terms of leadership and teamwork. And that's what it takes. I know Trina, and I'm kind of person who likes to talk about positive things so much because the negatives are going to be there. So that's just who I am. Although we need to hear both sides, I understand that. But I know that, and Trina, you know that, and some other people know that the Native Americans were upset in terms of their performance time. And, you know, you have to realize that things happen, you know, and we move on. We deal with it in a professional way, and we move on. These are things that have been stated, that everyone has said can be fixed. It's not anything that's out of we're all organized people. We've all been involved in a lot of these kind of events, so we can get it done. It's going to be even better next year. Those are words that I just want to express. I enjoy serving as the MC. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was a thrill for me, you know, and it's kind of hard when you're MC. You got to keep things moving because you don't know. You're looking at the audience, you're looking at the performers or the speakers, and you know you kind of have to pull the shirt tail or whisper in the ear. But everybody did well. I mean, they really did. I don't have any complaints. And I hope you have me next year.
Trina, sorry.
Uh-huh.
Stephanie Collins said some things. She said that she didn't realize there was water available and that she agrees that it shouldn't be single-use bottles. Also, she said that she emailed pictures from the event to her aunt. She's gonna make sure that she buys them next year.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. We,
Trina, I do want to say this because of the health epidemic that we have. I prefer bottled water too, you know, because I don't know what people are bringing. I don't know what they're taking away or what they're going to leave. And I don't want to be, or anyone else, having to suffer from something that we can control, you know, up front. I prefer to open a, you know, bottled water than going back, because you know, you can't watch everybody, how they're doing. Everybody does things different. So I would strongly recommend bottled water.
I'm going to agree with you, Mr. Bonzo. I really think where we are right now, we really need to stay there until we can see that we're not putting ourselves in harm's way with that.
And I have a suggestion with the bottled water. Use the minis because the other sizes is so wasteful. If I mean, I was at an affair yesterday where we had big bottles and it was just so much water wasted. So the minis will go a long way if they need to. At least they still are not wasting a whole half a bottle or a third of a bottle of water and throwing it away, because I saw a lot of that there as well. I'm sorry, but I haven't been able to get on. I don't know what was going on as far as audio, but I did have a suggestion. First, I want to say it was a great affair. People are still talking about it and how good it was. And I just wanted to make a suggestion. Several people came up to the table and wanted to know the schedule for today. I know that I saw one schedule on an easel at the open at the, you know, where the park, where you enter the park. What I would suggest is you make additional schedules like that and put it throughout the park so people can know what time, because I heard someone mention the Native Americans, they came to our table and wanted to know what time did they have to perform. Because I know that you want to make copies of programs and give it out in the bags. I don't know if you want to think about that and put it in the bags as people receive the bags and they will have the program right in the bag. If that's something that you do not want to do, I would suggest that you put more than one easel with a program in the park and put those easels throughout the park so people will be aware of what entertainment, etc., is going on in the time.
I don't know.
And Debbie Partlow wanted me to let you know that she's here. She's listening as well.
I didn't know if, like, relating to Miss Hattie's comment, if when people saw like check-in tables or like an information table or something, if, like, she said there could be a brochure that we could pass out or just like a small sheet so it's not so paper wasteful, of like a little hand sheet of the schedule, maybe, because I know sometimes when you pass out brochures, when people come in, you get tons of trash and paper everywhere and stuff. So maybe if it's just like a tiny piece of paper with the schedule.
And we did have, and I thank the Farmers Market for creating those easels. And we did have, I think we had 2 sets available, but the only reason why I didn't want to, I had not created a schedule per se is because, you know, sometimes you have people show and sometimes you don't, and then you're going to move somebody up or down the schedule regardless, you know, depending on that. But that I think that we could definitely consider that, because if somebody didn't show, then we just have some music or something playing in the place until the time for them to perform. So that is definitely something that we should consider for next year. Did anybody have any comments about the items that were in the giveaway bags? Some of them were donated from various organizations and churches and what have you. So I appreciate those donations that came in for the items that were in the bags, one from Martin Luther King and from Sunshine Circle and from Saint, it was your church. I can't think of Miss Sherelle's church. Gave,
Friendship United Methodist.
yep, Friendship United Methodist and Greater Loss Foundation, and we also had some sponsors that we are very grateful to as well. So
Stephanie Colick said that the items in the bags were great. And then Deborah Evil said maybe even chalkboards with schedules and people could refer to it, and then volunteers would be able to answer questions. Deborah wants to talk.
Oh. How about budget? Do we have a budget for next year? Is this something we got to start looking at? And or are we going to try to privately fund more? Or I think you probably need like a budget committee, a parking committee.
We were within our budget, and I know that we had I had more time, or we had an actual to do that, we would somebody's typing, we can hear you in the background typing, so put your on mute. But had there been more time, probably could have almost funded the whole thing. But you know, we have a budget for the Lost African American Heritage Commission, so you know,
I as you say, I think we can get a lot of private funding. I think people will be very interested in, and our community is always rises to the cause. So I think your commission should start looking at that, I think, and maybe we have to have a subcommittee and have budget as a big item, parking as a big item, and in various degrees, and maybe more organizational structure, rather than you do it all, as you did it all.
no,
Well, you did. I mean, you did. Well, I'm telling you, you did.
That were on the team that had plenty of contributions. So
Oh yeah, but
I will not ever
well, it's
take
too
the
bad,
credit
because that's the way.
in
That's
that.
the reality of it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
Stop.
moving forward. No, moving forward, I think that you need to be the general that you are, and people are willing to step up. So, and it's not too soon to really start talking about next year. So,
I do know that we have already. Okay, so I do know that we had already marked the calendar for next year, so it is already marked, so we can always start brainstorming and putting things out already. Another thing, Deborah said that people were asking about the bags, so maybe next year we could try to ask for more bags to be donated, and try to get more funding. And then, as well as she said, people were trying to buy our t-shirts. So, I mean, we could try that, and maybe.
So yeah, that would definitely be a team, a general for that as well. So yeah.
Well, it could also be something, so like, I, Trina, I hunted down shirts for everyone. So, I hunted down the shirts. So, and possibly next year, if we can do it to the fact that we can order it from a company in a larger span to where they have the t-shirts, they can already print the logos. And then if someone wants to donate it, like it happened this year, that it could be a reimbursement type thing. Just so we can get larger t-shirts, everyone can have the same color and we could coordinate maybe different colors for different people or something. It could be something that we could look into.
I think the having the bright t-shirts were a great way to be able to zoom in on who was part of the volunteers. So I really enjoyed being able to just look around and see where folks were to, if I needed somebody to be able to do that. But yeah, we thought that I think we ordered probably 50 t-shirts, and we did have to look around to get those t-shirts to.
We did have to look for those t-shirts. We did get 50. I got 50. Stephanie just suggested that if we do sell the shirts, to put them in a different color or even a different design, so that they're separate. My suggestion, you're not going to like this suggestion, but it's okay. My suggestion about the different colors for people who are running it is like, who's in charge and who is like doing certain areas, like who's going to be the main person at parking, like Harry said, and then like coordinate the food trucks or something, maybe something on the back of their shirt or something, just so they know who to ask about what question, what thing.
I know that the shirt idea, I've seen certain places, but the shirt idea came to mind from how Trinity Faith Christian Center does their 4th of July event. And so they have one color shirt for those who volunteer, but they had the word staff on the back. So I understand what you're saying when you put certain things on the back of the t-shirt. But again, that's added to the cost of the shirts. Every time you add something or a logo, that's an additional cost. And we thank the sponsors who sponsored the t-shirts as well.
Absolutely.
So Miss Pam and Donnell did that along with Greater Lourdes Foundation with the logos of that as well. And then
it's just the extra, like, I don't know, just an
little
extra
small things.
just an extra organization thing, basically. Because I know everyone could point you guys out with your shirts. There's no way you could have missed the volunteers in those shirts. But just
Miss D, you're on the phone. Are you still on mute? Did you have anything to add? If she's still on the phone, Mr. Lima?
She was on the phone.
Okay,
she was on.
Miss Ellie?
Nothing to add. I thought it all went very well. I'm taking notes for next year too, so we'll make it even better.
Harry?
I don't think Harry didn't come back.
Okay.
But
Helene?
I thought it was a great event. As you know, the only confusion we had was getting the tents over and knowing that and being able to direct the tentations on where the tent should go. I really like, I know why you didn't do a map for the vendors, but I think a laid out map for vendors might be a suggestion I would put forward. And then if you have missing vendors, put something like a cooling tent there or something else, because the only problem we had is we were very confused on where the tents went once we got there. And I think that would be helpful. The other thing is, I think that you could get a lot more sponsorships. We just have to start early, but I think people are going to be very eager to sponsor this event.
Thank you.
Trina,
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Dee. I was not unmuted. I think everything was absolutely fantastic. I think the volunteers, everyone did an excellent job, and I just was excited, very excited about everything.
Thank you, Ms. D. And I think that having the vendors and the entertainment, that was, to me, that was a perfect balance for the day to celebrate what Juneteenth meant. So that was not lost in the day. So yeah, that was great. And I don't think I have anything else. I'm tired of talking.
I think you need to establish your committee for next year and start working on some structure, organizational structure.
Absolutely.
And I'll volunteer if you need help.
Absolutely. Miss Chrissy, do you have anything for us?
No, I agree with that. We, just volunteer. Tell us what where you need us to help out.
Yeah, and I think some of the things like the signs and such, like you suggested and everyone else suggested, I really feel like I have no problem doing it. But I feel like that could be an in-house thing that we could make the sign. Well, I can make the signs, not that big of a deal, to make the signs and laminate them. Yeah, the directional signs and the signs for no parking and, vendor drop off only, that type of thing could be done in-house. And just so it would be easier and a faster turnaround to make sure that we got them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I know last year we started talking about all of this around October. But before we know it, October will be here. So, we will be working on something, probably starting in September. But I am all for trying not to have a meeting on this month or Louis African American Heritage Commission. We need a break, but we'll see.
I don't know. We can set up a meeting whenever you would like. Just let me know and we'll get it started.
All right. If there's nothing else from anyone or nothing else on the chat.
Ms. Hattie just said that she liked the nonprofits.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Thank you. That's it. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for signing on.